You're listening to the Life Friendly Business Podcast. I'm your host, Erin Thomas Wong, business mentor, author, and founder of the Cocoon VIP membership, empowering women around the world to build businesses on their terms. If you want to grow and scale a business that works in harmony with your family and your life, this podcast is for you. As part of the Visibility series, today I'm speaking to Joanne Dewberry, author, sage business expert and multi-award-winning blogger. Joanne also hosts regular networking meetups and walks in the Dorset area. We're going to be talking about what people find so difficult about networking, how to make it feel easier, how to get the most out of it. And she'll also be sharing the 3 top mistakes that she sees people making when they're networking and how to avoid them. Hi, Joanne. Welcome to the Life Friendly Business Podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So you are the author of Networking a Successful Small Business. So tell me a little bit about this book and why you felt the need to write it.
Well, I've been blogging on my website, joannedewberry.co.uk, for numerous years, and also running various sort of networking events. And you know, the same sort of questions are emailed to me. The same sort of questions came up in networking events. The same sort of blog content was being read all the time. And I just thought, you know what, instead of having like just all these different random blog posts, why don't I sort of put them all together and see if I can create a book out of them, which I then did.
Fantastic. But this is what we need to do, isn't it? Is work out where there's a gap here. And obviously people have got loads of questions about networking. And I think it's something that as a small business owner, like we know it's something that we really should be doing, but so many people find it really daunting.
I think as well, and because I started preparing all of the content before we went into lockdown, and like literally in the sort of March of lockdown, my book was kind of ready to go. And I was like, oh my God, I've just written like a 40,000 word book on face-to-face networking, and we can't even leave our house and see our family. So I'd really like, is this the right time to do this? Or should I sort of leave it for a while or wait and see what happens with the whole, like being able to leave our houses and things? In the end, I just sort of thought, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to put it out there and see what sort of happens. Because a lot of the tips in it are kind of useful. Well, they are useful. They are useful for any sort of networking event. So they're useful for online networking as well as face-to-face networking. Whereas, you know, for me, face-to-face networking is more important. I just love face-to-face networking. I love meeting people. I love talking to people. And you know what? Most of all, I love the way it makes me feel. And I know that sounds really weird, right? But when you are out networking with people who are like-minded, like you, have similar interests to you, or have similar issues to you, because, you know, we're all running a small business from home. Most of my network run it around a family, or, you know, from home. So our kind of issues are different to people who work in offices and things like that. When you have those interactions with people, they literally make your endorphins get sky high. And then the more that you have these interactions, the more higher your endorphins get and the more serotonin that goes through your body. And it literally is like having a workout, because your body gets so pumped and excited. And then you go home from these interactions and you're so pumped and full of all this like happy hormone that then you're more productive than you would be if you just sat at home all day doing nothing.
I totally agree. One thing I always say to people, like networking, and I mean, I love online stuff, right? But networking in person is so good for the soul for all those reasons that you said. And one thing I just want to say here is, like, I can hear how like animated you are and how passionate you are about this. And for those people out there who are thinking, am I going to the wrong kind of networking events because I find them boring? The reality is, yes, you probably have not found the right networking event for you yet.
Definitely. And I think that that's like I've got a graphic, I'll send it to you, but it's literally is like networking is not a one size fits all. There is so many different like opportunities to network, different groups, different ways that people do it. I mean, we've talked earlier about different ways that people run different groups. And, you know, there is no right or wrong answer to how a networking group should work. It's what actually makes you feel happy. It's what makes you feel productive. It's what you get out of those networking groups. So, you know, if you want to pay for a subscription fee, then that's great. If you want to go just for a coffee with a couple of friends and co-work, that's great. If you want to go to formal networking events where they have guest speakers and things, that's great. If you want to go somewhere where, you know, it's less formal and it is more of just an organized gathering of business owners in a coffee shop with cake, that's fine. It doesn't matter how you network as long as you're actually networking.
Yeah. And for me, you know, so when I first started my business 14 years ago, I was living in London then, and I had this idea that, you know, I had to go to these proper businessy things because I didn't really understand what I was doing at that point. And I was selling jewelry. So for me to go to like a corporate business networking was a waste of time, but I didn't understand that at the time. So I would go to these breakfast meetings with men in suits, and the conversations were like completely just not relevant to my world, you know, about like team leadership and all these things that weren't relevant to me as a small business owner. And it was only gradually over years that I started to find like things that felt better for me. But that's when I also decided, you know what, there's not what I want there to be in my area. So I'm going to create a networking group that fits what I want. And I think that's, you know, it's a really like important point to make, that like there's I'm sure that in most areas now these days there are a lot of different networking groups, but if you haven't found something that fits all of your tick boxes, then why not create it just like you have?
Do you know what the funny thing is? There's literally a paragraph or a couple of pages in my book that say exactly the same thing. You know, if what you want is not there, what's stopping you from doing it yourself? I mean, one of the things that I do is we go for a walk once a month. And, you know, the thing is, a lot of people work from home, and a lot of us are completely reliant on computers these days. So unless we like make a point to leave the house, we probably don't leave the house. We probably don't get enough fresh air. We probably don't get enough exercise. And just having that permission once a month to go for a walk for your own mental health and well-being is amazing. And I always find that with networking, because you're walking and you're outside and you know, you maybe haven't got as dressed up because it's raining, so you've got a coat on, you've got your wellies on and stuff, you're automatically not in that heightened business state. And so the conversations that happen are far more organic than when you are in a formal business situation. And I think you're less worried about saying things because it feels so much more relaxed and chilled. And you don't have that like, oh, I'm supposed to be professional. You're just like hanging out in your like comfies. And so then you end up saying things that you probably wouldn't have thought you would have the courage to say out loud. And then that's when you find that because you've had that courage to say, I really am struggling with X, Y, and Z. I've read all these books. I just can't get it. There's always going to be somebody who's going to go, either, yes, I am too, and I've spoken to so-and-so, and then you've got that whole like collaboration happening, or there's somebody who knows the answer themselves and can help you out.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there as well is quite an important difference to mention, is the fact that, you know, for me, most of the time I have been networking because I want support as a small business owner, and I want to connect with like-minded people. And like you say, like, you know, be able to talk openly about the challenges that I'm facing and get inspiration from them and ideas from them. But I think that lots of people just sit in that camp of thinking that networking is purely about going out there and getting sales. And, you know, and yes, there is like, there is a space for that. There is room for that. But what would you say about like, where should the balance be between doing it for yourself as a business owner and going somewhere where you feel like, you know, part of a group of like-minded people, or the kind of networking where you feel a pressure to go and actually get sales?
See, the thing is, for me, I think that there is across the board a bigger emphasis now on our mental health and well-being, and burnout and things like that. They're not like, oh my god, she burned out because she's so amazing. No, people are like, oh my god, she needed help and she didn't get that help and now she's burnt out. Like, our whole mindset on health and well-being has changed dramatically. And the thing is, if you worked in a corporate office environment or even in retail in a supermarket, right, you're going to have a team of people around you that you have conversations with on a daily basis. There's going to be that natural interaction with another person. So why do you feel like, as a small business owner, that you actually can't go out and just have a conversation with somebody? Why do we think that there has to be an end game to everything? Like, do you know what the end game to having going and meeting a friend who also is a small business owner and having a coffee with them? That you're not trying to sell them a product. You're not trying to sell them your business. You're not trying to sell them your service or anything. You're literally there for your own mental health and well-being. You're having a conversation with somebody because you don't actually have opportunities in your business to have many conversations with people. You're utilizing skills that we're starting to lose as like a whole collective of people. People are rubbish these days at reading body language because we don't spend enough time talking to other people and looking at the way that they're responding to us, because we're always on phones and we're always on computers and we're always having email conversations, and we're losing these skills that are really important, like skills of listening, actively listening to what somebody is saying to us so that we can respond appropriately. We're always sort of half listening because we want to tell them something about ourselves or our own business instead of actually listening to what somebody is saying to us.
Do you know, that really triggers something for me, because, and it's interesting you say that we're losing the skills of those things, because I really have noticed over the last couple of years that there's quite a lot of people now who don't seem to get basically they just talk at you. They're talking at you and they're never asking questions back. So it's like a one-way conversation at you, and more people are doing this, and you just made me think maybe this is a case of like people just forgetting what it's like to actually have a conversation where you give each other an opportunity to speak.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, this comes back to the whole like networking's got a bad stigma, but it's not that it's got a bad stigma anymore. It's that people believe that this stigma. So they think that actually they have to turn up somewhere, they have to sell themselves to somebody, and they have to hand out as many business cards as they can, because that's how they interpret that was a successful networking event. Well, I've gone home and I've got 50 less business cards and I've got 50 other business cards. And then they look at the business cards that they've collected up and they go, well, none of these people are relevant to me. They can't provide a service for me. And likewise, I can't actually provide a service for them. So then there's the whole missed opportunity, because in my networking group, there's a lot of people in my networking like circle, especially my real like inner circle of like best friends, that I probably would never use their services. But that doesn't mean that I haven't already built up this massive know, like, and trust with them, that I'm going to tell everybody about them because I love them and I trust them and I know them. I want them to be successful in business. So I want to tell everybody about them. And that's something that you can't get unless you're building relationships with people, unless you're going to these networking events and actively listening, actively participating, getting to know people, letting people get to know you, not just your business, but you personally as a person. And then they're going to go out and tell everybody about you. Whereas, if you're turning up just expecting to sell a product or a service to somebody there and then, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And as you just said there, like, even though you might not be the ideal client for, your friends and their products, you can then think of them when someone else who might be their ideal client says that they've got this problem, and you're like, I know who's got the solution. And it's kind of like the gateway to opening up for more conversations, isn't it? Every person that you speak to, if you make a positive impact on that person, there's the potential then for them to tell 5 more people, and it goes on.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the sort of 7 degrees of separation. You can always sort of pinpoint yourself from one person to another person by something like 6 people, isn't it? And that's because you are taking the time to make and develop relationships with people. You're not literally there for a hard sell. And the thing is, I think because social media is like, it it's up and down. Like sometimes we're being told, like, you know, you have to really sell yourself. You have to keep telling everybody all the time, this is what I'm selling, this is what I'm selling. But then at the same time, you've got to tell everybody what a nice person you are and really let them into your lives and stuff. And I think, oh my God, you could do that in half the time if you just actually went out to a networking event and met people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, this season that we're doing on the podcast is all about visibility. And this is something that as small business owners, we need to be prioritizing. We need to actually get our businesses out there. And, you know, and if you're feeling like, you know that you've got something good going, because people tell you that whatever it is that you're offering actually helps them and you're getting good testimonials, but you're not getting enough sales to make it, feel like a comfortable business, it probably means that you need to be reaching more people, and networking is a great way to do that. And I would love you to share with us the top 3 mistakes that you might have done yourself or you've seen other people do with networking, and how we can make sure to avoid them.
My first one, it's sometimes I feel like I'm contradicting myself when I say this, because I don't think you necessarily need to have a pitch. And I think pitching makes it sound like you're trying to command business from someone. But what you do need to have is a hello, my name is. And what you need to do with that hello, my name is you really need to fine tune it. You need to be clear about who you are and what you do. You need to practice saying these things out loud. You also need to have like a few like different bits that you can sort of add into the equation. So say, for example, we go back to you talking about going to corporate events, but you were selling jewelry aimed at mums, then you would tailor your hello, my name is, so that when you went to somewhere that was full of mums, you were, tailored it to meet their needs. But if you were at a corporate event, you might tailor your pitch or my hello, my name is, in a way that you're asking them for help with growing your business. So the actual business advice side of it. So that the reason that you need to have this clear idea of what you do is because when somebody says to you, even if it's not a formal where they do the whole, we're all going to go around in a circle now and say something about ourselves, even if it's just one-to-one with somebody, as soon as you're not clear about what you do, you start using words like just, and start to minimalize what you do, because you get unconfident and you feel a little bit like don't know what to say, and then you don't come across clear about your business. And then if you don't come across clear about your business, then the other person has no idea what you do or how you can help them or how they can help you, and then it just becomes a missed opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that sometimes we feel so much pressure to get that right, like get that clear and concise. But the fact is that, in order for someone to remember what you do need to say what you do, like in a very clear way, don't you? And that's the same whether you're using that meeting someone in person or writing an intro post on Facebook. It's the same thing. It's your message. This is what you do. So it is important that we have that kind of clarified for ourselves.
Definitely. In my book, I use the example of Inigo Montana in the Princess Bride film. So he says, hello, my name is Inigo Montana. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And so what he's basically saying is he's giving you a polite greeting, his name, a relevant personal link, and he's managing expectations. So although it is a little bit of a funny thing, once you've got those sort of 4 things in your forefront of your mind, and the thing is, you want to say the same thing every time. So you want to kind of practice it and you want to be clear about what you're saying, because then it just rolls off the tongue. Then you're not doing that thinking beforehand. It just automatically is a natural response to when someone says, oh, what do you do? And that's what you want. You want to be assertive about what you do, because as soon as you start using words that don't give a positive impact, you see, that's the thing people use. I notice it all the time. So it's one of the things I say about not using the word just, because as soon as you say, oh, I just a freelance writer, you might sort of make it sound like it's not important. And it is important what you do.
Yeah. I mean, I always think that when people say I'm just a mum, or I'm just at home with the kids, or I'm just this, and it's like, this is one of the most important jobs in the world. There's no just about it. But you're right. And, you know, and that's where building your confidence as a small business owner needs to be key. Like, if you know that this is something that you're lacking confidence in, get help, you know, get out there. There's loads of like videos online. There's books that can help you with confidence. You know, you can speak to a business mentor, all these things, but it will be game changing if you can actually show up at those kind of events and feel confident enough to say clearly what you do. And, you know, this is the thing, like, people will be able to see if you're unsure and unclear about what you do, and it won't be as impactful as if you can say it, you know, in a well-rehearsed fashion kind of thing, but not like a robot.
No, not at all. And that was going to be my next point. So I personally, I think you should avoid pompous industry jargon, because nobody knows what you're talking about. And also make sure that it's not natural. Because when you use pompous jargon, it becomes unnatural, because it wasn't something you would say normally. So, you know, you need to make sure that you're being natural and authentic, because that's the most important thing. Is people buy from people because they like people. And if you're trying to be something you're not, it's just not going to last. And then you'll just look like an idiot, and people will be like, they weren't authentic and they weren't real, and I didn't really gel with them because of that.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. So what's mistake number 2?
I would probably say not being authentic.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I know it's really difficult sometimes to go into, especially if it's a new situation, a new scenario, and you've never met any of these people before. It can be really easy to pretend to be something you're not, but actually, how long can you carry that through? And you know, that's the same with online as well. The persona that you put forward online should be the same as if somebody met you in real life, because if it's not, then when someone does meet you in real life, they're going to be like, what the hell? Who are you? Like, what? So I think it's really important to be authentic. But whilst you're being authentic, you're more confident, because, you know, you can't long-term pretend to be something you're not. It's just, it doesn't happen. So you're going to build those better relationships because you are being your authentic self, and everybody around you can see that you're being your authentic self. You're comfortable because you're being authentic. They're comfortable. And then, you know, good things start happening.
Totally. And I think, you know, once again, if people listening are thinking, I can't imagine ever feeling comfortable enough at an event to be my authentic self, it might be that you're going to the wrong kind of event. And, definitely. You know, and that's what, you know, in my community, and that's why I created the Cocoon as well, to create a safe space where people are genuine and will feel safe enough to actually share when they're going through problems. I mean, we've had people do Facebook Lives in tears, and, you know, the fact that they feel that they can do that is just amazing to me, and they just get showered with support. And I think, you know, yeah, if we need to find places to go for ourselves as business owners where we feel like we can genuinely ask for help when we need it, and not be in fear of like being judged by people. It's so important to have that.
Definitely. I think that would be like my main. So when I go to networking events and things, I don't tend to go with like a goal list or anything like that. Whereas other networking books I've read have sort of suggested you should have networking goals. And there's nothing wrong with having networking goals, but for me, sometimes my networking goal is leave my house, talk to human beings, have a nice time. And there's nothing wrong with that being your goal. It doesn't have to be like, I have to sell X amount of products and make £2,000 today at this networking event. Just turning up and having a nice time is in my eyes, is one of the best goals you can have. But I think you're right. You need to try so many different events. You can't just turn up one time and to one event and then be like, that didn't work for me. You kind of need to go a couple of times, because, you know, it might have just been that day, but you also need to try different styles of events, different times, because, you know, I know that I'm a different person at 10 o'clock in the morning than I am to 7 o'clock at night. So, you know, it's about trying like to work in your own rhythms as well. So just trying out lots and lots of different events. And I would say if you aren't very confident about going to events, there are a few things that you can do beforehand. So, you can contact the organizer and tell them, I'm not a very confident networker. I've never been to this group before. I'm not sure I know anybody. And they'll, whenever I have new people who come to any of my events, I always greet them straight away, ask them about themselves, find out a little bit about them, so that then I can, if I know that it's a busy group, there's going to be lots of us, I can sort of move them off to a group of other people that I know will embrace them and welcome them. Because that's the last thing you want, is somebody just standing there feeling really uncomfortable and out of the conversation. So, contacting the person beforehand is key. Also asking any of your other friends, look, I'm going to go to this networking event. Do you fancy coming with me? That can always help you feel more confident if you turn up to an event with your friend. But then don't stick with your friend the whole time. Make sure you are still meeting and greeting other people. Or some event organisers will send you a list out beforehand of the delegates, and sometimes they'll have like some of their details on them, so you can just have a quick look on social media. You might even realise that you follow them already, and then it's an opportunity for you to have a conversation with them. At your Momentum Day, I was talking to a lady, and then I was like, I saw you on the TV, like some sort of fangirl. And, and that was for her. That was a really nice way for me to open the conversation with her, because she was like, oh, yeah, I was. And we got to have that whole like conversation about her being on TV and like how amazing that is. Whereas it's only because I'd seen the list beforehand of who was going to be at that event, and I knew that I'd seen her on TV, that I was able to then go directly to her and start that conversation.
I think they're great tips. And, one thing I always think, if you're feeling really nervous about going to something like that, is to think about asking other people questions, because we all love talking about ourselves. And if one thing that makes you nervous is like, if people ask you something that you're not sure how to respond to, or, you're feeling low in confidence about that, just think about, right, I'm just going to go there and I'm going to ask people questions about them, because they'll love that. And that's a really nice, easy way to kind of start the conversations.
Definitely. Which is why if like not having an elevator pitch, but having a hello, my name is so important as well, because it's always the fast question that you're going to ask someone. Oh, what's your name and what do you do? And that's the fast thing that someone's going to ask you as well. And then once you've sort of like all had a chance to tell each other in that sort of situation what you do, then you can start really thinking about, well, I'm really interested in learning more about this, or actually I really need this service in my life right now. And you're able to sort of move on from just, especially if you come with a friend, you can then move on from just your friend.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's number 3?
What would be number 3? I think it would kind of link into that about not trying lots of different events. I think that's where people fail, because they go to an event and it's not right for them, so they think that they failed at networking because it wasn't the right event. And actually that's really important, to try lots and lots of different events, and also to remember that you might have friends that go to various events and they might think they're wonderful, but actually they might not be right for you. And that's okay, because like I said earlier, networking is not a one size fits all. And just because your friends like it doesn't necessarily mean that you will like it. So you have to try lots and lots of different like ways of networking. And, I'm not really a fan of online networking. I much prefer to go out, but I can see the pros of online networking. You don't leave your house, you haven't got to commute somewhere, you haven't got to worry about where you're going to park your car, or if you've got any change in the car for the car parking, and all those little things that can make people really anxious about actually getting to an event. You don't have to do that online. And so if you are really not very confident at networking, I think online is a really good way to sort of dip your toe in it and sort of start to have those conversations with people, practice being able to say in front of other people your hello, my name is, and then like take it out into the big wide world of face-to-face networking.
You mentioned there about, well, we've touched on it a couple of times, that I know conversations I've had with people as well that have been like, I've tried networking and it hasn't worked. And when you ask more about it, it's basically that they've gone to a networking event once and they haven't sold anything. And that's their definition of it working or not. How else can we know if going out networking is actually working for us?
Well, I think for me, it's the conversations that I have and the people that I've met. When you go to a networking event and you're having those conversations with people that make you feel really good about yourself and make you excited about your business and about what you're doing, and then you go home and you're really super productive after that, that to me is a win. When you're thinking to yourself, oh, yes, it's networking next week, and you're excited about going to that networking event, that's a win for me. If you're sitting there going, oh, I've got networking in my diary and have to go, and you're really not feeling it, that's not a networking success. That's, you're in the wrong place. You're networking with the wrong people. It shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be something that you're having to make an effort to go to. It should be something that you really enjoy, and you enjoy the outcomes of being there. And if that is selling a product, then amazing. But if that's just having a nice adult conversation with another person that's made you feel good about yourself, then that's amazing too.
I totally agree. And I think the other thing that we've got to remember is about the long game of networking, because if you think about every networking event that you go to in person, you're kind of planting seeds around. And I know that I've had people who've come to work with me like 3 years or longer after we've met at a networking event, and they said to me, oh, do you remember we met back then? And now they're coming and they're working with me, or I bump into them somewhere else and they mention like, oh, I remember speaking to you. And, and also opportunities that might arise through people that you've met at these things who've remembered you, and something's come up and they said, oh, I remember meeting this woman at a networking event. Like all these things, they're not immediate results, and I think that's where, and with the Visibility Mastermind, I really like every month we use a visibility tracker to not just write down our stats, like, our social media stats and website stats, but also like, where have we been? What networking have we done? And make notes about, oh, actually, I made a really good connection here. Because like we forget that progress. And then we kind of think, oh, well, nothing's happening. I'm not getting the sales in. But actually, you've been planting seeds all these different places.
Definitely. And I think that's really important. I mean, some of my friends went to a networking event yesterday, and they're like two pockets of different friends. So they've met each other through me, but they're not like networking friends as such. And both of them emailed me and was like, oh, we met so again today. And like, I was like, yeah, because like I've done that sort of thing.
One thing I want to ask you is what you think, because this is a bit of a bugbear of mine, is about these networking events where they basically only allow one person from each industry or whatever to join the network. What do you think about that?
I think you can't say that because like VAs, for example, you can't do every single thing. So if you get a client that comes along and says, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, and you can't do Z, but another VA that you can outsource that to who can do Z, then, you're providing the best possible service you can for your client. And obviously that's what you want to do. You don't want to half-heartedly take on a job that you can't actually do. So you need to network with VAs if you're in a VA, for example. So I think you do need to network people in your genre so that you can build up these other people who can become part of your team. And also on the offside of that is if you say you can only have one photographer, and then the person who takes that one photographer space is a baby photographer, and everybody else in the network is a product-based service, they don't need a baby photographer. They need a product-based photographer. And I think there's some businesses where, although you're like, for that example, you're a photographer, there's 10, 15 different genres of photographers. And so how can you say, sorry, only one person from each genre can be involved in this networking event? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I think sometimes that's where you go to an event and you go, this one doesn't work for me, because that's not what you need. You need to be networking with people who are the same genre as you, as well as outside.
Yeah, I feel quite strongly that, you should not feel pressured to buy from someone purely because they are in your networking group that you are paying for and that you're supposed to use that graphic designer, for example. Like, we should have the freedom to buy from the person that we think is best for the job. And the other thing I wanted to say as well, like you're saying about, like VAs, networking with VAs, like the best kind of networking is collaborative. And that's where those kind of opportunities for getting together and kind of finding ways to work together, that's where they come from. And, you know, that's what I love about the work that I do with my community, is that these collaborations happen and, you know, it can work beneficially for both parties.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the person who did my manuscript, who put all my manuscript together, was ready for like printing, because I don't know how to format a manuscript, you know. I barely know how to use my computer half the time. But, you know, the person who did that conversation happened when we were on the beach with our kids, right? Like, we were just having a like networking play date. So all our kids were playing and we were just having a chat. And it just so happened she said something and I was like, but could you format a book? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, you know, the collaboration is really important. I mean, I use it in my book and talk about collaboration over competition, because, you know, you shouldn't be competing with anybody, because everybody has something different to offer. And that's where I think the problem is, that people think that they can't network with the same genre because you're competition with each other, but you're not. You're actually the perfect people to help each other's businesses grow. Because if another VA gets really, really busy and can't handle all the clients, at least they've got other VAs that they can then outsource the work to or take on as associates. But if you're not networking with other VAs and making friends with them, they're not going to recommend you, or they're not going to pass the work on to you. They're not going to make you an associate because they just don't know who you are.
Very important point.
Just kind of, it's to do with networking, but it's slightly off tangent. So last year, my partner and I got married. After sort of 21 years together, we got married. And, you know, I keep thinking I should really write a blog about this. So the lady who did my hair and makeup, I met her through Leave a Link Up. And she comes to my monthly networking event. And so as soon as I obviously decided that I needed my hair and makeup doing, she was obviously the first person I went to. I co-run a networking group with Jackie at Lima Landings. And so we've known each other now for sort of 10 years. And she's a part-time sort of dabbles in floristry. So she did all the flowers for my wedding. She even grew some of them, and she even came to my house and cut some of the flowers from and leaves from my olive tree to form part of my flowers. 4 of the gals that came as my friends to the wedding, they were all from networking. And one of them, I met her when she sort of emailed me and was like, I live in the village next door. I'd love to buy a copy of your book. This is my first book, Crafting a Successful Small Business. She was like, how do I go about it? And I hand delivered it to her because she lived in the next village. And then since then, we've become great friends. And she even came to my wedding. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, those little things are way more important than the amount of sales that I might have had in that time. You know, I'm not measuring my success and my networking success through financial gain. Mine is through like joy. And that might sound weird, but, you know, these people have made a huge impact in my life. And that to me outweighs the monetary value, if that makes any sense.
It makes a ton of sense. And that's, you know, the whole thing in my mind about a life-friendly business is about measuring success on your own terms. And that's exactly what you're doing. And I'm totally with you on that. And that's such a lovely story about your wedding as well. Loads of really great tips. I really hope that anyone who's listening, who's been feeling a little bit put off by the idea of networking, will be inspired now to go and try a few different places. Where can people find out more about you, Joanne?
Well, I run everything on social media as Joanne Dewberry, so I'm very easy to find. My website, my LinkedIn profile, Facebook, everything is Joanne Dewberry, so I'm super easy to find that way. And then I would definitely, if you are local, you know, you're not committing to coming to my events for the rest of your life, but if you wanted to, you know, pop along to any of the events where we can have a chat and, you know, you can meet some other people and just basically, you know, build a bit of confidence to be able to go out and network, because our local area especially is just like, there's networking events every single day. There's so many of them, and they're all so different. There's a plethora of them. There's just completely different events for different people. I mean, there was one yesterday in like it was a child friendly one, and they were all babies, and it was like a baby group, but there was all these mums there that ran businesses. And I mean, that's amazing to me, because that gives those people an opportunity to network in a way that they probably didn't think they could because they have a baby.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to say, for anyone listening, local means Dorset. So
sorry.
Joanne and I both live in Dorset, Bournemouth Pool area. So that's great. And I'll put the link to your website in the show notes and everything. But thank you so much. Really interesting. And obviously your book, Networking a Successful Small Business, is that available on Amazon?
Yes, it's available on Amazon and other shops as well.
Lovely. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Do you get great results, glowing feedback and fantastic testimonials, but still not enough sales? You've fallen into the best kept secret trap. Visit lifefriendlybusiness.com/visibility to find out how to escape it so you can grow your audience, amplify your impact, and increase your income.